Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is not good. Well, at least the movie isn't. Now, I know that might hurt to hear me say, but hear me out. When I say it's not good, I'm specifically talking about the movie. The book is amazing. And actually, it seems like the only people that do like that movie are the people that have never read the book. And sometimes I wish myself that I haven't read the book so I could experience the movie like a lot of you do yourselves. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Me not thinking the movie is good all boils down to the amount of information and plot that was completely cut from the movie. Now, I understand we have time constraints and we gotta meet this and that and we gotta tell the whole story within like 2.5 hours. I understand that, but this movie should have been put into 2 parts, and they were thinking about it also. You see, if you haven't read the book, you wouldn't know exactly what I'm talking about. You wouldn't think the movie is bad, probably, because the appeal of the movie on its own is amazing. But to really understand how much they really have cut from this movie, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. Both the movie and book start off with Frank Bryce walking in on Voldemort and Wormtail. Well, in the movie, he walked in on Barty Crouch Jr. as well, but I don't think he was there in the book yet. Yeah, so that's one difference, but it's not too big. It's not too big. It's immediately after that where we start getting the huge differences, where some of the best stuff gets left out of the movie. Now, in the movie, we cut straight to Hermione waking Harry and Ron up, telling them to get up, and they have to go.
Wake up, Ronald.
Bloody hell.
And they're heading to the Quidditch World Cup. But in the book, as usual, we start off at the Dursleys' house. We found out the Weasleys sent a letter to Harry asking if he could join them on going to the Quidditch World Cup. The Dursleys agreed, but the Weasleys were really gonna get Harry anyway. They just asked as a courtesy, which is funny. Now, Harry and the Dursleys are thinking that the Weasleys are gonna pull up in a car or something, because they can drive, kind of. But what actually happens is the Weasleys use flu powder to arrive in the fireplace. And that's a problem for multiple reasons off rip. 1, the fireplace is blocked off, so Harry had to help sort that out. 2, the Dursleys hate magic and are scared of it, so that made them start freaking out instantly.
You bring her back now and you put her right.
Now, Mr. Weasley is trying to make conversation with Vernon while Fred and George go upstairs to get Harry's things. Now, when Fred and George come down the stairs, they purposefully drop their Tun toffee so Dudley will pick it up and eat it. Now, what happens next is Dudley's tongue starts growing at an alarming rate. And that's when the Dursleys really start freaking out. They start screaming. Petunia's trying to protect Dudley, and Mr. Weasley is trying to calm the whole situation down, and everything's just going crazy. It gets so bad that Mr. Weasley has to tell Harry to just go through the fireplace and he'll meet them soon. Now, I will say that whole first part is not really needed. I don't really have any problem with that being left out of everything. That doesn't really matter. What really matters though is the Quidditch World Cup. I'm telling y'all, if you've only watched the movie, man, they left out so much. To me, after reading all the books, when I'm trying to watch Goblet of Fire, it really feels like a slideshow. Like it feels like they're just skipping over things. I'm not joking. Read the book and then watch the movie. It will feel like they're just skipping over everything. It'll feel like an unfinished movie. In the movie, when they get to the actual grounds where everything's taking place, all they do is walk through the crowd and they go to their tent. Harry walks in, he says, "I love magic." And then it cuts immediately to them in the stadium for the Quidditch World Cup. The worst part is, we don't even get to see any of the Quidditch match. And up to this point, we've already missed out on some key characters and key information. For example, you have no idea who Ludo Bagman is if you've never read the books. You never find out that Oliver Wood, after he graduated, is on the Puddlemere United's reserve team. Like, you never find that out. I know that's a small detail, but these details add up. Now, back to Ludo Bagman, he plays a kind of important part in the book. Throughout the whole book, he's one of the people that you might be thinking is the one that put Harry's name in the goblet. Because in the book, he's constantly trying to help Harry, trying to give him tips, and he's always seeming like suspicious, and he's hanging around the castle too much. Like, he's really weird. That's a miss in my opinion. I think it would have been much better for the story to have him in it. It would have threw more people off, because at a certain point, Moody kind of became like a suspect, like way too fast.
Last boy who went into the Department of Mysteries never came out.
Now back to the book, Ludo Bagman makes a deal with Fred and George, or a bet actually, regarding the Quidditch match and who's going to win. Now Fred and George, masterfully, prediction so good that some people in the fandom believe that they use time turners to go see the score. I don't know, bro. But what they said was Bulgaria would get the snitch, but Ireland would win. And that's exactly what ended up happening. Now this doesn't come up until later in the book, like a good amount later, like in the middle of the book. Now, Ludo actually tricked them and gave them leprechaun gold, which disappears after a while. And Fred and George spend almost the entirety of the book trying to go after him to get their money back. Now, there's not too many differences left in the Quidditch World Cup from the book and the movie. I'm pretty okay with what happened when the Death Eaters or the Death Eaters started to attack the grounds. Obviously, there's much more detail in the books, like Stan Shunpike is there and he's talking to the Vila and he's just lying about what he does for work and all that stuff and how important he is. They run into Malfoy in the woods. And another important part of the story is completely taken out, and that is Winky, and she is Barty Crouch's house elf. Now in the book, she's framed for casting the dark mark in the sky because they needed someone to blame, so they wanted to blame a house elf who obviously wouldn't know how to conjure the dark mark. And the dark mark is actually cast with Harry's wand. And as we found out later, it was Barty Crouch Jr. that did it, and Harry had lost his wand earlier when he was running away in the woods with all the chaos going around. Now Barty Crouch was there and a bunch of the other Aurors were there, and they all pretty much came to the conclusion that Winky couldn't have conjured the dark mark. It was ridiculous. She doesn't know how, and it could have easily been somebody else that picked up Harry's wand and maybe gave it to her or put it near her. There was one person that didn't believe that, or he didn't want to believe it. It was Barty Crouch. He didn't care that his house elf was scared. He didn't care that she wanted to get away from the chaos, and that's why she was in the woods, because he was furious at her. He was mad because she left where she was in the stadium. She was supposed to hold his spot in the Quidditch World Cup for him to sit down at, which he never came to. And through all the chaos and everyone running around, he did not care about any of that, and he fired her. And also, I'll add that she was afraid of height, which is why it was also so terrifying for her to be up there holding his spot. Now, after this, she's not in the story for a little while, but she gets sent to Hogwarts where she works in the kitchens. And this is also the book we find out that house elves work in the kitchens, and that's how they get all the food for dinner and stuff. It's house elves. Now, I've told you guys a good amount of information that's been left out. We're gonna skim some more throughout the story now instead of focusing on these little details, but I'm just trying to tell y'all some of the events that's been left out. This is just an example. Next in the movie, Harry and gang, whatever, they go to Hogwarts and we're in the Great Hall. This is where we have the announcement and arrival of the other schools for the Triwizard Tournament. Now they all make their big entrances and they come in, whatever, and they explain the goblet. The only real big difference I'd say here is that in the book, it's not until around Halloween where the other schools actually come and they explain everything about the Triwizard Tournament. But the schools actually don't come until around that Halloween time, you know? In the movie, they're there day one right away. Like I said, it's not really a big difference. It's just there. But I think these small details so far is what kind of makes the movie fall apart for me. Because already, without the inclusion of Winky, without the inclusion of Ludo Bagman, and if you don't know, Dobby's also in this movie. Dobby's the one that actually helps Harry in the book in the first task, you know, that helps him with the gillyweed or whatever. It's not Neville as in the movie. Now, obviously, I don't remember every single detail from the book, but some other things that played a really big part in the book than from the movie is Rita Skeeter. I can't really remember how many headlines they really show that she made in the movie, but in the book, it's a few of them. It's a good amount of them, and she gets kicked out to school because she's just causing trouble and just starting stuff for no reason, and people are eating it up like they really believe it. It'd be like the goofiest stuff, and they believe it. But a part of her storyline that happens is at the end of the book, Hermione catches her and finds out that she actually is an animagus, an unregistered one, and she threatens her to stop writing about them or just it's either stop writing in general or just stop writing for the Daily Prophet or stop writing about them or whatever. She threatens to turn her into the Ministry if she doesn't abide by those rules, and she did. And it's cool how Hermione did find out about her, because while Rita Skeeter was kicked out of the school, she was not allowed on school grounds, she was still able to get information about things happening in the school, and people didn't know how. But Hermione finally put two and two together. I think she saw that fly, because she can turn into a fly. I think she saw her by Draco or something, or Draco talking to it or something like that, and that's how she caught her. She caught her in a jar or whatever. But it's just stuff like that that's just left out in the movie, man. I'm telling y'all, the movie feels like a slideshow. It's tough. Read the book. If you don't read it, I'll read it for you. Just let me know. Then when you grow up and you have kids, you can let your kids pick. Do you want Jim Dale narrating or do you want Bellerton? Obvious choice. Now, but for real, this is like this movie is where it really started to mess up plot lines later or characters later in the series. Like a lot of people, I wouldn't say a lot, some people didn't really care about Dobby because he was only in 2 movies. He was in Chamber of Secrets, and then he was in Deathly Hallows. That's it. We don't see him anymore after that. So people don't really get to grow to love him and care for him more like they did. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I've always cared for Dobby, but some people, they don't care. Like, they don't get it. And now that I'm really getting on camera and talking about it, I'm seeing that most of the problem that I have with this movie is for the lack of details and extra information that's just completely left out. A lot of it's not really huge plot lines, but if you take a bunch of small plot lines that were in the book and take all of those away in the movie and you just have one straight, like, it messes everything up. Even the bond with like Moody and Harry, it's way more prevalent in the book. I mean, that's kind of a given because it's a book, it's gonna have more information. But there's a lot of those moments that we just don't see. For example, Harry almost gets caught out one night sneaking around the castle and stuff or whatever, and he's not paying attention and he accidentally steps on one of the trick stairs and he gets stuck there. But Moody, because he has a special eye, can see him, or Moody, and he doesn't rat Harry out. He helps Harry, actually. That's one of the things that made Harry more trusting of him, more fond of him. Also, another thing that's book only that's completely left out from the movie is Harry is able to fight off consistently the Imperius Curse, which if you for some reason don't know what the Imperius Curse is, you can pretty much control people, whatever you want them to do. It's an unforgivable curse. You can go to Azkaban for using it. Now, Moody, in these classes he has the whole class try to use Imperius on each other so they can fight it off, which actually kind of makes Barty Crouch Jr. one of the better defense against the dark arts teachers they have. If I had to give it a list, I'd go Lupin than Barty Crouch Jr. That's crazy to say, isn't it? But he really did help them. He taught them more about the curses and how to defend against them. Also, the first task in the movie with the dragons, it went how Harry tried to go get the egg, and then he called in his firebolt and he flew around the whole castle and stuff, and then the dragon just fell to its death, we assume. No, like, are we supposed to like just forget about that? Like, Dumbledore, there's a dragon at the bottom of the cat. We don't know if it's dead or not. We don't know. It could be alive, it could be dead, but there's a drag. I think we should check that out, right? We brought these dragons in out of country. We did all this paperwork and stuff. I don't think we can lose a dragon, especially not on school grounds. What if the dragon's down there recuperating, getting its health back? What if it comes back and attacks the whole castle? I don't know. I don't know. Crazy idea. Like, please, let's do something about that. But seriously, in the book though, that definitely doesn't happen. Now, I will say the movie is more exciting, but in the book, Harry calls in his firebolt the same way, except the dragon doesn't escape. Harry dives in and dives back out quickly, and little Bagman is on the mic glazing him, talking about Victor Crumb. Do you see him? He can fly. I'm like, hey, I'm not gonna lie, that part was cold. But y'all get what I'm saying, bro. It's like, it's completely different. But if you don't think too deeply about what happened in the movie, it makes some sense. Now, the second task, they're not too different. They are still different. Like, every task is different from the book, as in like what exactly went down and stuff, but it's not too different. Oh, another thing I forgot to say is SPEW, which is SPEW. It's Hermione's group she came up with, or foundation or whatever. It stands for Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, and she hates it every time Ron calls it SPEW. Pretty much wanted to get better treatment and pay or whatever for house elves. There's so many details left out, bro. This movie irritates me. And don't get me started on
Harry, you put your name in a goblet of fire.
Dumbledore asked calmly. Like, no! No! Now, as we get towards the end of the movie and end of the book, we get to the final task, which is the maze. Now, the maze in the movie was incredibly lame, actually. What did we get? We get a crazy-eyed looking Victor Crumb, and then we got some plants grabbing each, like, come on, bro. In the book, we get blast-ended Scrooge, we get Boggarts, I think we got a Sphinx, Dementors, mist and stuff that makes things, directions all like we get a bunch of good stuff in the books. Why'd they leave all this stuff out? I don't get it. I want to like this movie, I really do, but I can't. Like, maybe I'll put it on in the background for some background noise, but I can never just sit through this whole movie. It's dreadful. Okay. Now, the rest of it is pretty much the same with the book up to a certain point. Everything with Cedric and all that stuff in the graveyard, that's, you know what I'm saying, more or less everything what happened in the book happened in the movie. More or less. I don't really have too many problems with that. It's after that where we start getting into the problems. You know, Moody takes Harry back away from everybody, away from Dumbledore, which is how Dumbledore knew that wasn't Moody, because Moody would have never in that situation took Harry away from him. Which, even though Dumbledore was tricked the entire school year into thinking that was really Mad-Eye Moody, that's pretty observed. That's pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty impressive. To notice that one thing that he took Harry away from him in that moment, that's pretty good. It also shows how much he really knows Moody. Now, you could say he don't know him that good because he didn't notice all year it wasn't Moody, but still. That one moment's all it took. Now, the rest of it's pretty much the same. They go back, and Moody starts being freaky, or Barty Crouch starts being freaky and all this stuff, asking questions and stuff. And then McGonagall, Dumbledore, and Snape come in, and then Fudge is there also. But what they don't tell you in the movie, at least I don't think they tell you, but Barty Crouch Jr. dies. Or, he doesn't die, but he gets a Dementor's kiss. That's what Fudge has the Dementors do. Instead of waiting, instead of listening, he does that. When that's their biggest clue to everything in that moment. Fudge is so incompetent, bro. And this is not in the movie. In the movie, after those events take place, I believe it goes straight to the big meeting, end of the year school thing in the Great Hall, where Dumbledore gives that speech about Cedric and all that stuff and how we need to stick together and everything, and how Voldemort's back. Harry saw him, fought him, and you know. In the book, before we even get to that though, we go to Madame Pomfrey's, and that's where we get a lot more information. Everyone's in there talking, making sure Harry's okay and stuff like that. And then Dumbledore tells Sirius it's okay and tells Snape to go and join Voldemort and all that stuff. It's beautiful. And that's one of my favorite moments, when everyone's so shocked to see Sirius come up right there. Because another thing I forgot to mention is that in the book, Sirius is there most of the time near Hogsmeade, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione actually will give him food sometimes. He's out living in a cave, making sure Harry's okay, scoping out the area, you know what I'm saying? Like, so much left out, bro. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget this movie for that. I don't think I will. Now, the series, I will be interested to see how they do the series. I hope it's not bad, because although they did leave a lot out of the movies when it started getting later, like Goblet of Fire is where it really started leaving a lot of stuff out, but I think it's really the only movie that suffered for me. The rest of the movies I can still watch just fine. It's mainly just Goblet of Fire. Oh, and Half-Blood Prince, I'm not too fond of either, but I'd rather watch that over Goblet of Fire. I don't know, the movie by itself is not bad, but when you've read the books and then you go back and try watching Goblet of Fire, it just doesn't do it for me. Maybe it's not the same for y'all. Let me know in the comments how it is for y'all now after you've read the books and then going back and rewatching the movies. Is it the same for y'all? Do y'all feel this? Like, do y'all feel me? Like, I can't be bugging, right? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think the Goblet of Fire movie is bad when compared to the books, or am I just chatting? I'm out.
Harry, you put your name in the Goblet of Fire.